You're welcome to my channel. My name is Ndifon Ntui. On this channel, I make swim tutorials. I post new videos on Wednesdays and on Saturdays. So if you're into stuff like this, make sure to check back on those days in order to watch new content. Alright, if you are a beginner or if you're a person that's trying to brush up on your skills, I offer online courses. I'll be showing a demo on how to make a jumpsuit so you can watch and decide if it will be convenient for you to learn online. If you're interested, send me a message on Telegram. Alright, number is on the screen right now. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like the video, please give it a like. Do not forget to subscribe. I will see you in the next video. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye. Alright, you're welcome to this video. This video is a continuation of my previous video. So please, if you want to know what's going on here, be sure to see my previous video. You're welcome to the channel. So to begin, we stopped at the top part. We have to draft a skirt part. Please make sure to keep this pattern that we drafted in the first class. That's the front side of the of our bodice. Make sure to keep it because this V here, this V will be useful. We need to know how this V looks. All right, so let's go ahead first, draft out our skirt pattern because that's the first part of all of this. All right, so let's go to begin. I've made a video on how to draft a skirt pattern before, so be sure to see that if you have an issue with drafting skirts. The link to that video will be in the description. But just to run through it real quick, I'm going to place 1/2 inch at the top of the fabric of the paper that's going to be used as my allowance for joining the bottom to the top. I'm going to place 17 because remember at the top we stopped at 17.5. I'm placing it here. All right, and then I'm going to mark out all my other points. After the waistline, our hip line is going to be 8 inches after, so 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you see that around there, that's where your hip line should be. Next thing I'm going to place is the dress length. The dress length is 41, so I'm going to place that right over here. All right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rule lines across all my points. So I'm ruling a line here and a line here. The next thing we're going to do is we have to place our measurements across. The first measurement I'm going to place across is the waist measurement. Please make sure to use the same measurement you used when you were drafting the pattern in the first video. Don't even increase it by 1/2 inch, if not it might mess up your work a bit. So the waist is 38.5. 38 divided by 4 is 9.6. 38.5 divided by 4 is 9.6, which is what I've placed there. The next thing I'm going to place is the hip measurement. The hip measurement is 46. 46 divided by 4 is 11.5. So I'm going to place that here. 36 divided by 4, 11.5. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 2 inches from my hip measurements and I'm going to place that at the bottom. So if my hip was 11.5, the bottom part here will be 9.5. That's what I'm doing. That's how I do mine. All right. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to connect all our lines together. All right. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm keeping 2 inches allowance at the bottom for my hemming allowance, and then I'm keeping all my I have to place my dart points. So I'm going to just come to 5 inches. That's the bust point to bust point. I'm going to place that there. Because of the darts that I'm placing here, it's going to affect my allowance at the top parts. At the waist area now, I'll have 3 inches of allowance. At the hip, 2 inches. At the bottom, 2 inches. Okay, so like I said, here we're placing 3 inches, here we're placing 2 inches, here we're placing 2 inches. The 3 inches is because of what the dart is going to consume. So let's cut it out. We cut the bottom first, cut it like so, fold it underneath, and we cut so that the bottom edge would have the V that corner there is going to have. I'm going to use this pattern to cut the back. The only difference is that the back would have a zipper allowance. Remember, the top part here didn't have a zipper allowance, but the bottom part would have a zipper allowance. That's one of the things that would drive you crazy if you don't know how to make this. So that's why I'm making this video. So make sure to keep 2 inches when you're drafting the back pattern, but the back pattern is basically the same thing as the front. The only difference is that the back has a zipper allowance of 2 inches, which you've seen me keep there, but I'm cutting everything else to be the same. All right. You've seen what I've done so far. I've made a notch to show where my dart point is the same in the front as it is in the back. All right, we're going to have to make an adjustment at the back so that it curves around the bum properly. Now, I don't want too much for this dress, just a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to trace my hip line. You saw what I did there. Okay, I'm going to come 7 inches after there, and I'm going to come in by half an inch. All right, and I'm going to draw a line, then I would make a curve. This is going to make the zipper to curve around the bum a bit, the back of the skirt to cover around the bum a bit. All right, so we're going to chop off the excess. So that's the back pattern, the other one is the front pattern. Let's keep the back pattern aside first, and then we're going to have to work on the front. This is the front pattern that we have. You're going to get the pattern I told you to keep. That's the pattern we drafted in the previous video. We're going to place this line here. You see this line? We're going to align it with this one. All right. That's what we're going to do. You see what I'm doing? I'm going to take my time with it. Come to the beginning. Arrange it like so. You see that? Place a paperweight on top. Make sure that everything is good. Everything is tidy. And then if all that is good, we're going to simply draw a curve, just a curve. You see that? And then when you are done with that, you are going to add half an inch on top of it. This is going to serve as your allowance for joining it back. When you are done with this, you are going to chop it off, and then we're going to need to transfer the dart point to this curve. All right, so you see this, I'm going to place the pattern that was chopped off right on the edge like so, and then I'm going to come right above it, and I'm going to make a mark so that I know that that's where my dart is going to be at the end of the day. I'm going to make a little notch to recognize the position. All right, so that's all the modifications we'll need to make to the front of the skirt. So we're going to use this pattern to cut the back and the front of the skirt on both the fabric and on the cotton lining. Put your fabric on the fold just like I have done, and keep it on a closed edge for the front so that it comes out as one piece. All right, the same thing here. We'll have two pieces here, so you see I'm cutting it on an open edge. All right, and now we have two pieces. Make sure to mark out your dart points. So so you can see here I've cut it. I've cut my my lining as well. You see that on both the fabric, on both the front and the back. All right, we cut the lining with all the same dimensions on the side, but we'll need to shorten the end of it. But first, cut your pattern complete, just like I have done. Do not take away anything, so that in case this is your first time doing this, you don't get confused. But I'm going to give you instructions on what to do now. All right, so on this one here, you see that you're going to measure out 3 inches and reduce the lining by 3 inches, just like I have done. The first thing we're going to do on all sides is you're going to hold the darts on your fabric and on your lining, and at the back too, we're going to hold our darts on the fabric and on the lining. All right, so that's what I'm doing now. You can see that. So 4 inches is the length I'm using for my darts on the front on both the fabric and the lining, and at the back I'm using 5 inches for the length of the darts on the fabric and the lining. As for the width of the darts is simply a 1 inch dart, so I'm going to hold half inch. The space I went in by half inch. The length of it was 5 inches. I hope that is clear. So when you're done with all of that, I will join the front to the back. All right, remember you kept 2 inches for your sewing allowance. Make sure to hold 2 inches for your allowance. Don't reduce it. The dart that we have held has not changed anything because we had made provision for it already. It's just that now that 3 inches we kept at the waist is now 2 inches. So that's why I'm holding 2 inches everywhere on both the left and on the right. I'm going to do the same thing on my lining as well. All right, so you can see it here. I'm joining the front to the back on the side, front facing front. That's the two neat sides. The two neat sides of your front and your back should face themselves, and the rough work should face you. That's where your dart is facing should face you. The other one should face the machine. So front facing front. When you're done with that, we're going to need to spread and iron our seams flat so that everything is going to come out nice and neat. Okay, do it on your fabric and on your lining. All right, let me get the fabric. So you're going to take it to your ironing table. You're going to spread it flat like so. You're going to give it a really good press so that it lays flat. Then move on to the next step. After you have done all of that, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring the bodice. All right, so the top part made in the previous video, you're going to bring it into the mix. It's best to start from the deepest point. If there's a V like the one I'm working on now, all right, you see that you're going to drop the V where the V is supposed to be. We're going to start from the middle out, that's from the middle to the left, and we're going to come back to the middle and go to the right. So you see that we're starting from the center, not from a closed edge. All right, so after I've gotten the V shape, you can now do whatever. You can come back to the edge, but make sure you get that V properly before you stitch to the sides. All right, and if you do it like that, everything is going to come out well. You can see how neat and clean my V is looking. At this point, I had not even touched it with an iron. There was no bulging, nothing at where we have the V. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we have to start working on how to install our zipper. So we're going to come to the back of our skirts, and remember we kept 2 inches of allowance for our zipper allowance. Now, irrespective of the fact that we have trimmed 1/2 inch out of the bottom of our skirt for that curve effect, it doesn't mean anything. Hold 2 inches everywhere. By holding the 2 inches, that's what gives that curve, okay? Because you have 1.5, you are going in by an extra 1/2 inch if you hold it 2 inches. All right, so I'm simply stitching my line. I kept the space of 7 inches from the top before I started stitching the space for my zipper. I'm going to do the same thing on my lining. All right, so remember, 7 inches from the top. Let's look at it here. 7 inches from the top, and then the width, the length of the stitch is 10.5 inches. As for the depth of the stitch is 2 inches. All right, so I'm going to take my time and I'm going to do that here. All right, so this is the skirt lining. Bring the two sides of the zipper allowance together. All right, 7 inches. All right, keep your finger there. 7 inches. All right, then 2 inches. All right, and then we're going to stitch a 10.5 inch stitch from here all the way down. That 10.5 inches came from what I did on the fabric part. All right, so please make sure to measure whatever you stitched before, as in from where you started stitching to where you stopped for your slit, and use that to stitch your lining. At this point, I'm going to simply install my zipper. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to simply install my zipper. All right, still 2 inches. I kept 2 inches. I'm going to consume 2 inches every time I do anything concerning my zip. All right, and when that has been done, we're going to move on to the next step, which is now binding the fabric to the lining at the waist. All right, so figure out the top parts. Use your darts, where your darts are, as a guide to help you walk fast. All right, because you see me fiddling with the fabric, I was trying to figure out where it was until when I now remember that I had made darts. All right, so you're going to take the front side of your lining, the clean side of your lining, and you are going to align it to the clean side of your fabric. All right, we're going to stitch from one side of your zipper, and once we start from here, to take you all the way around to the other side. All right, so front clean side of your lining facing the clean side of your fabric. I'm going to stitch that all the way around. It's going to take me to my zipper allowance. All right, so you can also do what I did, stop and come this other way if you want to see how everything is looking. All right, you see this? When you're done with that, okay, you've joined the waist. Pick up the bottom part. When you flatten everything like this, you pick up the bottom part of your fabric. You see what I'm doing? Pick up the bottom part of your fabric, align it with the lining, and now we're going to stitch. We're stitching the bottom now. All right, that's how you go about stitching the bottom of your lining and the bottom of your fabric. Okay, you lay it flat the way I did. Pick up the fabric, pick up the lining. Make sure you can see the way I was looking at it, and then you join it the way I did. And you're going to simply go. Once you start, this is going to work just like the waist did. If you start from one side of the zipper allowance and you keep stitching, it's going to take you straight to the other side of the zipper allowance. All right, now when we turn everything inside out, let me turn everything inside out so that you see what we have done. By the time we turn everything inside out, you notice that the waist, first of all, if you take a look at the waist, let's see what we've done here. It's just the zipper allowance that's still sticking out, but you can see how neat the waist is. You don't have any thread hanging anywhere, nothing nasty. All right, so there's no seam, there's no joining, like rough looking joining showing on the outside. At the bottom as well, we just turn the bottom. The only thing that is hanging out now is the zipper allowance and the slits. Because of that, turn everything back inside out. I just turned it out the first time to show you how it looks. Turn everything inside out. Locate your zipper. All right, you're going to locate your zipper. All right, you're going to pick up, you see this space here, you're going to pick up your zipper like this. You're going to put fabric and lining together. So the lining that is joined to the fabric at the waist, you're going to place them together and you're going to stitch. You see this? I'm basically stitching as close to where I stitched before as I can. All right. So if you go from here all the way down while your lining is under it, you are going to see that you have sealed both the zipper allowance, and now that we're coming down here, we have sealed the slits at the bottom. Remember, I told you when you were stitching around, oh, if I didn't, make sure that when you're stitching around the bottom, you leave a little space that you can always turn things out of. All right, so that bottom stitch that we made to lock, if you have to open it up, that place would allow you to turn inside and out. Let me show you what we've just done now. If you see this slit, look at how clean this slit is now. You see this? You've seen how clean this slit is. All right, that's because everything has been tucked inside. We've stitched it in. It's left with this other side. Okay, we're going to need to do the same thing with this other side, so that it looks nice and clean. Also, if we come up to the waist by doing what we just did, you will see that the top part of the zipper is neat and clean. You see the inside is clean, the outside is clean. So pass through this other hole here. Now this is not the hole that's supposed to be at the bottom. The hole that's supposed to be at the bottom is going to be where your fabric and your lining meet at the hem. Okay, leave like at least a 6-inch space that you can turn out of. Now we're back to the zipper. We have to close up that space. You can see this is the zipper allowance with lining that's meant to be with it, that's joined at the waist. We're going to do the same thing we did before. You see this? You see that that's the slit. We're going to have to also lock it. You can start from wherever you want. I'm starting from the bottom, from the slit. I'm going to stitch up into the zipper now. By doing that, you've made everything neat. Locate the hole that was at the bottom again, and then you're going to turn everything out of. This project is not for the faint-hearted. Turn everything back inside out, and all you have is the hole that we use to turn things out of. At this point, you can simply top stitch it neatly for it to become sealed permanently. That's what I'm going to do now to lock everything in. All right. So by doing that, we've locked everything in, and everything going to be nice and clean. You see how everything is looking? That's the shoulder that we have there. You can see the skirt pattern, the skirt parts that we have over here. All right, if I flip it over, you see what we have. You see that if I zip down, you see this is clean on the inside. And of course, if you check the slit area, everything is nice, clean, the inside clean, no rough joining like I don't understand the kind of tailor you would be if you are still sewing like that. Anyway, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tackle the sleeve. It's just a regular long sleeve pattern with a flay attached to the bottom. I'm going to try and drop links to how to draft the sleeve and how to draft different types of flay, but it's pretty elementary, so this is already a long video. Let me just I'll go ahead, build my sleeve. I'm going to show you how I attach it to the armhole, but it's just a sleeve that's made of lace with a flay attached to the bottom. I believe I must have made a video on something like that before. Yes, I have. The video where I made a jacket that had a flay sleeve is the same way I tackled that video. That's what I'm going to do. Also, make sure to make a long lace out of your Ankara that you would use to loop the back. So these loops that we have, you're going to need to make a long lace out of your Ankara, and that's what you're going to use to loop. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. Yeah, so this is my sleeve. As you can see, let me place it down, regular sleeve pattern. All right, and that's the flay attached to the bottom. Really nothing interesting or difficult here. Browse my channel, you'll see something that would show you exactly how to do that. But I'll drop some links in the description. I'm going to simply attach it. You see the way I've attached this one is just to simply go around the armhole. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to do that. But once I'm done with that, I am done with this video. Once I do this, it's just simply spin around the armhole. When you're done, use your overlocker to finish it. If you've watched this far, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to see you in the next video that's coming on Saturday. This is Saturday. But I made this video before Saturday, so you'll see that video on Wednesday. I'll see you on Wednesday. Yeah, and now my videos will be dropping on Wednesdays and on Saturdays, not Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. I cannot kill myself.